Well, since you showed interest in Western animation, I thought it over and why not? It's not bad to digress for once. So, for this 600 sub-special we're talking about animation, but not about Dragon Ball animation, despite my username recalling it, yeah, but I won't change it. Instead, we're going to discover what's behind Tom and Jerry. And I know what you're thinking, oh, is that all? A mere cartoon? It's not just a cartoon, it has a complex history behind, and today we are going to analyze it. For the record, I should probably take away this screenshot right now, since it doesn't apply to this topic, but regardless, this is my sort of animation breakdown of Tom and Jerry. During the 30s, Disney was easily becoming the most popular animation studio thanks to their memorable characters and qualified animators. And MGM wanted to reach their level by hiring Fred Quimby as supervisor of the cartoon department, William Hanna as director, and several animators and writers from other studios, such as Isadore Freeling, Joseph Barbera, Emery Hawkins, Jack Zender, George Gordon, and so on. Freeling would eventually be employed by Warner Brothers, while Hawkins would work for any animation studio. However, despite the great amount of talent, after 1937, MGM suffered a financial crisis due to the failure of the Captain and the Kid series. Their situation was not that prosperous, so the character designer Barbera was paired with the director Hanna as a desperate move. Barbera suggested a new concept for an animated film, which was about a cat trying to catch a mouse. Such a simple concept, but it felt risky considering the status of MGM and also not that original. But this short would eventually be completed in 1939. Hanna and Barbera handled direction and story, Ising and Quimby the production, and Bradley the soundtrack. So it was finally done. This new film was released on February the 10th of 1940, with two main characters, Jasper the cat and Jinx the mouse. This is the very first theatrical appearance of Tom and Jerry, and this is also the only short to have over 10 animators working on it, if we exclude movies of course. And most of them are quite renowned, such as Jack Zender, Michael Leigh, Peter Burness and George Gordon, and all of them had a recent experience in MGM, which does make sense since Tom and Jerry hardly ever talk, so they need to make expressions and animation stand out in order to hide this sort of weakness. About this short on the specific, the animation is good, the artwork is still rudimentary and colors are really dull. And it's really an issue, it's like watching a film with clouds on it. However, this film was just an experiment, and yet became so popular it would be nominated for an Oscar. Who would have betted on such an unoriginal idea? How could the cat and the mouse formula obtain such achievement? We don't know. What we do know though is that a bet actually became a fact, that a standalone cartoon became an actual series. So on July the 19th of 1941, MGM released the second Tom and Jerry short, The Midnight Snack, this time with Tom and Jerry's names actually being Tom and Jerry. And starting from this film, we can finally analyze the very first animation team of this animated series. Bill Littlejohn, Jack Zender, George Gordon, Cecil Surrey, Hirvan Spence and Pete Burness after 1942 Puss and Toots. Before analyzing their styles one by one, let's point out that Tom and Jerry's earlier designs are not that close to their current renditions. Tom was not an anthropomorphic cat yet, but was four-legged and had 6 whiskers instead of his usual 4. On the other hand, Jerry did not change as much as Tom, he only had a much younger look, as eyelashes suggest, more or less like a child. The animator's job was really difficult, since they had to fit in Hanna and Barbera's model sheets. Nonetheless, each of them has a distinctive identity. George Gordon is well known for his thick eyebrows, shaggy hair and big paws on Tom, and for his round cheeks on Jerry, while Jack Zender tends to make characters look younger, especially Jerry. Also, take a look at his thin pupil glare and at his long whiskers. Maybe one of his best known sequences is the bowling ball train in 1942's The Bowling Alley Cat. Despite his expressions being closer to the 30s, this scene still works pretty well. which is not that much of a problem, but MGM animators usually tend to exaggerate. Instead, Zender kept his creed. Be Little John draws characters much younger and cuter as well, but not in the same way as Zender, since Little John's expressions are much looser. In The Midnight Snack and Dog Trouble, Tom and Jerry look quite chubby, and Jerry even displays a slightly larger nose. As a whole, his artwork is a lot different from his Snoopy scenes, but his animation remained smooth and energetic. For example, this scene from 1942, Puss and Toots, shows his talent and accuracy. Look at the goldfish, his acting looks just stunning. Little John was also the first one to draw Tom with 4 whiskers instead of 6. As for Cecil Surrey, his style is a mix between Zender and Little John, slightly cute but dated artwork. He's probably the only one to draw Tom's nose as close as a real domestic cat. No joke, his nose looked quite realistic. As for Burness and Spence, I kept them for last because they are easily 2 of the most distinctive American animators. Starting with Pete Burness, he has a huge experience since he worked for a couple of studios before MGM. His characters look cute, but at the same time share the typical wackiness of MGM. Burness is especially known for his evil eyebrows. Not that one, there we go. However, this would happen later on. And finally, Irvin Irv Spence, another animator with an incredible experience, who worked along with Dub Equors and Tex Avery in both Warner Brothers and MGM. In chronological order, Spence is the first of the so-called Fantastic Four, and judging by his contribution, you can definitely see why. He stands out so much because he exactly replicates the authentic spirit of Tom and Jerry, jerky and off-model art and over-the-top and wild animation, with a large use of in-between frames as well. However, during Tom and Jerry's early years, Spence did not benefit of the production schedule, since he also worked under Harman and Avery for totally different tunes. For example, The Bowling Alley Cat was released on July the 18th of 1942, while Avery's Blitzwolf aired the following month. Speaking of which, on the animation credits we can spot Ray Abrams, who was one of the few to draw Jerry with 6 whiskers, and Dead Love from Disney, who became a regular animator for MGM. Thus, months after the release of The Bowling Alley Cat, Surrey left MGM, Abrams no longer worked on the series, and Spence would not animate Tom and Jerry for the rest of 1942. But this series became really successful, so on October the 10th, a new film was released, the last of that year. Fine Feathered Friend was not that great content-wise, but it shared some big news. This was the final Tom and Jerry short with Little John, and the first one to include animators' names in the opening credits. This was also the first short with an outsider animator, who came from the most popular animation studio of the world, Disney itself. Of course, I'm referring to the second member of the Fantastic Four, Kenneth Ken Muse. He's really different from the animators we have analyzed so far. While most of them grew up in MGM, Muse's formation became purely at Disney, in which he worked under Jack King, Clyde Geronimi and Riley Thompson. This sequence in particular makes us realize why he is so different from Gordon, Burness or Spence. His style is actually closer to Disney rather than MGM. It is about solid and non-model figures and movements with a lot of in-between frames. On top of that, his sync with the parts of the body is basically flawless. Characters move their arms, their legs and their heads at the same time. This feature can be recognized in some Donald Duck films. Muse instantly became the representative animator of this series, thanks to his solidness and reliability. In fact, the following short, Suffering Cats, which aired in early 1943, was the first one to feature Muse as the main animator. At this point, the animation cast was composed of Gordon, Zender, Muse, Burness and eventually Spence after the animated film The Lonesome Mouse, which was released on March the 22nd. About this short, it is the first one in which Tom and Jerry talk, but apart from that, what really stands out of this series is the complete harmony between art, animation, music and effects. It's not random that it was surrounded by extremely gifted animators. In fact, 1943 is the year of the second Oscar-winning short, The Yankee Doodle Mouse. Like I stated before, Tom and Jerry don't need to talk, because slapsticks, effect and animation speak for themselves. This is also the last short for both Gordon and Zander, who would leave MGM some months later. In my opinion, this short marks the end of the earliest era of Tom and Jerry, since in late 1943 a brand new era would begin. On the specific, on December the 25th, with the animated film Baby Puss. Starting with this film, Tom and Jerry would gradually change and slowly reach their current physiognomy. As for the animation team, Muse, Spence and Burness were confirmed, and in addition to them, another Disney-ish animator was hired. His name is Ray Patterson, aka the third member of the Fantastic Four. He is well known for creating grouchy expressions, and his figures look less on model and Disney-ish than Muse, but are still pretty expressive. As for Baby Puss, it is the first cartoon of the quartet Muse, Spence, Burness, Patterson, who would last until 1945's T for Two. Anyway, Baby Puss is mostly remembered for the Mama Yo Quiero sequence and for that cat cross-dressing. Animated by Burness. And speaking of music numbers or dance scenes, Hanna-Barbera never had just one regular animator working on it, unlike Jack King with Paul Allen or Fritz Freleng with Jerry Chinicki. But still, this animated film represented the beginning of Tom and Jerry's teen era. Therefore, a new short was released on February the 26th of 1944, whose title is The Zoot Cat, which is easily one of my least favorite original Tom and Jerry tunes. And it is another conservative short, as a couple of dancing bits animated by Spence are repeated. Animation-wise, throughout this year, we start seeing some changes. Spence's approach becomes even more wacky and loony, which is really fitting in this case. Burness' artwork looks cute but to an extent, and Patterson confirms his innate skills once more. As for Muse, you can actually see him getting to Tom and Jerry atmosphere. Even if his style still resembles Disney more, he's not invasive. On the contrary, it's nice to see so many details on an MGM cartoon, as the following installment, The $1 Million Cat, displays. Expressions are simply stellar. Muse's solidness, Burness' evasiveness, Spence's craziness, and Patterson's boutness. For the first time ever, this series achieved a true balance through pure talent, and the long history of Tom and Jerry has just begun.